Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome, everyone, to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
And I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
Thanks, as always, for joining us. Big fight week. David Benavidez versus Benavidez-Plant, Saturday night at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, live on SHOWTIME Pay-Per-View, and of course, presented by Premier Boxing Champions. David Benavidez will be joining us a little later in the show. So will Jose Valenzuela, who has a tough assignment on Saturday night as well. And Mike and I are going to break down that entire card every which way possible. But first, some other boxing news. This week, Sebastian Fundora and Brian Mendoza spoke to the media during their first press conference ahead of their 154-pound showdown Saturday, April 8th at Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California, also live on PBC on Showtime. Mike, what do you think of this matchup?
Well, my first reaction was that it's a fun matchup style-wise. You know, two guys who like to mix it up, so it should be fun to watch. And I think Mendoza's last performance makes it particularly intriguing. He lost a clear decision to Jesus Ramos back in 2021. You know, after that, you kind of thought, well, maybe this kid's hit his ceiling. And then he takes a fight with a former unified champion, Jason Rosario, and knocks the guy out in 5 rounds. That was just a career changer. You know, it's why he got this fight with one of the hottest fighters in the world. Fundora is just always fun to watch. I think the backstory with Mendoza just makes it even more interesting. So, yeah, I really like this matchup.
Yeah, I love this matchup. I mean, Fundora, obviously one of the top 3 guys at 154. He's coming off that incredible Fight of the Year stoppage over Erickson Lubin, and now closing in on a world title shot at the undisputed champion, Jermell Charlo. But that said, Mendoza is a sleeper here. I loved what I saw from him in his last bout, stopping former unified champ Jason Rosario in 4 rounds. He showed speed, power, good boxing skills, and a very good ring IQ. He's an explosive fighter, and I think that's going to make for some fireworks on April 8th. How important is this fight to the winner?
Well, I guess first I'm speaking mainly about Fundora when I say every fight is crucial when you're, you know, as close as he is to getting a shot at a major world title, which is what he wants, obviously. Fundora is just right there. One slip up and it's just all gone, you know, at least for now. And this is Mendoza's big opportunity. If he wins, you know, he could end up with a title shot. You know, if he loses, you know, he could disappear. So this is an important fight, obviously, for both guys.
Yeah, a lot on the line for these two 154-pounders. Let's bring in our first guest. He is a lightweight prospect looking to right the ship and get back into title contention when he faces Chris Colbert Saturday night on the Benavidez versus Plant Showtime Pay-Per-View. Jose Valenzuela. Jose, first things first, how has camp been?
Camp has been tremendous. It's been very motivating. It's been exciting. You know, being on such a big card. You know, David Benavidez versus Benavidez-Plant. You know, their rivalry and just taking advantage of that. The fury in the gym. Due to the rivalry and you know, using it to my advantage.
What has it been like in the gym? David's been got his game face on, right?
Yeah, you know, every day has been electric. Every day is, you know, high voltage, a lot of energy. So it's great.
Now, you've had some time now to reflect on the fight versus Edwin De Los Santos. What do you think went wrong?
I think a lot of my preparation. I think my not giving him, like, not the respect, but just not putting enough time and effort on my game plan, not really looking closely at the details. You know, the fight was also switched, so already as it is, I wasn't paying enough attention. So when I got a new opponent, I didn't really look. I think I seen like one video into him, so I think all that just kind of played a part, you know, my diet, just me rushing things, doing things too fast, you know, and it just showed my bad preparation in the fight.
So you were quoted as saying, I wasn't 100% sure what you meant. You were quoted as saying you knew what you felt during the fight. What did you feel as that was happening?
Just the bad preparation, the trying to force the shot, the sluggish, just being sluggish and like one punch knockout fighter, and then just cost me the fight, and I paid the price.
Got it. Was it difficult to get over? It was your first defeat, which is always hard. Was it difficult to get over that?
It was. I think just the time off. Like I took like a couple weeks off. I think like 2 weeks off, and that was just kind of a hard pill to swallow. But then as soon as I got back into the gym, I started feeling good. I honestly just started feeling myself again. It was really I just let myself down. It was a personal thing. So as soon as I just quit the bullshit and just got back in the gym and started doing what I love and just finding the passion again, I feel great and I'm very happy now.
Does something like that make you a better fighter?
I think so. Because every day now, like since my fight or since camp started, like I was just reflecting every day after my workouts, through my whole day, like just looking over every mistake, looking at every little detail. And I think overall it was just in the long run, builds a better, more complete fighter instead of just, leaving things for the last minute and then not fixing anything.
Now, looking forward, did you do anything differently in this camp to prepare for your fight against Chris Colbert on Saturday?
Of course.
Yeah, sounds like you did.
Yeah, pay more attention to him, to my opponent, of course. Really had a solid game plan. Have also a plan B. Just bounced a little bit more on my feet. Use more of my tools. I started becoming very heavy-handed, and that's what I think also caused me to just fall like that. So just being more light, more speed, and more my agility and athleticism.
It's kind of interesting. Colbert's also coming off a setback, so I guess we can count on seeing two hungry guys in the ring on Saturday, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what makes this fight such a great fight. I just think that I have a little bit more advantage because I'm the natural 135 pounder. He was off for a whole year, gained a lot of weight, and also like I think he was just focusing a lot on the weight on this camp. So I think that'll work in my favor.
That's interesting. Maybe you could expand on your impressions of Colbert. Obviously, he's got something there. What do you think of him as a fighter all around?
I think he's a good fighter. He has like spurts like of good moments in fights, but he also has a lot of like bad moments in fights that I know I could take advantage of. He seems to crumble in fights sometimes, and he'll kind of just put his guard up and kind of like get low and just kind of let the opponent get off. And I think if he does that with me, it'll be a early night.
He obviously lost pretty comprehensively to Hector Luis Garcia. I'm guessing that you've seen that fight. What'd you make of that loss?
I thought it was interesting. His energy and the fight. I think he kind of like quit on himself. I don't know. It was very odd to see. Like he wasn't even fighting back at times, and just letting Hector go off on him. But it was surprising. But I had also seen him other fights of him that he kind of just does that. He crumbles in fights, and But I think his opponents just haven't. Hector did, take advantage of it, but a lot of his opponents don't know how to set the right shots up to end them and get them out of there. But yeah.
We kind of alluded to this earlier, but you and David have been training together for this fight. What has that been like for you?
It's been good, man, because David, we're real close, so he was coming in early in the gym just to make sure, he was giving me the right pointers, talking to my coach, Shay Green, and just working with him too, keeping him, up to date on stuff he wants me to work on, and just, being on top of things all together as a team. He's a great leader, and he was definitely showing it this camp.
In your opinion, why does David beat Caleb Plant?
I just, Caleb is a good fighter, but I think just David brings too much. I was watching the Caleb fight versus Canelo, and they talk about Caleb's speed so much, but I truly didn't see no crazy speed. He had some cool pop shots, but that's definitely not going to be enough to get David off of him. David's going to bring combinations. He has a hell of a jab. It's underestimated, and the body shots. And I just think overall David will get him out of there.
Tell us something about David, whether it's inside or outside the ring, that maybe people don't know or know about.
Outside the gym, he is a sweetheart, man. He's a great person. He has a great heart. He loves to help people. I think, people mix up the two because, we're so aggressive in the ring, and we're so competitive that I think people look over that. But he's a hell of a person, and he loves to help people. And in his boxing, I think his IQ is super good, man. His shot placement is underestimated. He does a lot of great things. Also, I think his defense is underestimated. And I don't know if that's because of his past history or whatnot, but I think him as a fighter all around is being overlooked. I think this Saturday he's going to show it.
Nice. Has he given you any specific advice for this fight with Colbert?
Yeah. Just to be myself, not to want to rush things. I have natural power, so looking for the knockout is not the way to go about things. Just be myself, use my jab, start setting shots up, start landing pop shots, and go from there, and the knockout will come alone.
Okay, and finally, how do you expect the fight to play out?
I think it'll be a good competitive fight. The 3-4 rounds, and I have a feeling that I'll be putting on a lot of pressure. Smart and strategic. I think Colbert's gonna fade, and he might crumble. But if he doesn't, he's there to fight all 10 rounds. I'll be ready, and it's gonna be a hell of a fight. Two guys who are very motivated coming off a loss and want revenge. And I think it's gonna show Saturday.
Looking forward to it. Jose, we know it's fight week. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us. Best of luck in this fight and going forward.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I'll be happy to be putting on a show for you guys.
The hostility between these two guys is real.
March 25th.
My objective is putting a beating on Caleb Plant.
Knockout artist and two-time title holder David Benavidez takes on the smooth technician and former champ Caleb Plant.
I need to teach him a life lesson.
And no one's backing down.
I'm going to beat the living out of you.
You're not going to do nothing.
David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant, Saturday, March 25th, live on pay-per-view.
This Saturday, one of the biggest fights in recent years is going down. Unbeaten two-time 168-pound champ David Benavidez takes on former champ Caleb Plant for the WBC interim 168-pound world title. The stacked 4-fight Showtime pay-per-view from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas begins at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and we begin here with the essentials.
Okay, here we go once again. David Benavidez, 26-0, 23 knockouts. Plant is 22-1 with 13. Obviously, Benavidez is 5-0 in his last 5 with 5 KOs. Plant 4-1 with 3 KOs. Last fight for Benavidez, knocked out David Lemieux in 3 rounds in May of last year. Plant gave us that memorable one-punch knockout of Anthony Durrell in the 9th round in October. Benavidez has one of the higher knockout percentages, 88%, Plant 57%. Interesting, Benavidez has 118 rounds, Plant has 142. Benavidez is 26, Plant 30. Benavidez turned pro in 2013, which is hard to believe because he's only 26 years old. Plant 2014. Both fight from an orthodox stance. Their dimensions are pretty similar. Benavidez 6'2", Plant 6'1". Benavidez 74.5-inch reach, 74 for Plant. Benavidez is a native of Phoenix. Plant is from Nashville, but he lives and trains in Las Vegas.
What makes this such a great matchup?
Listen, this is a matchup of two elite young fighters in their primes, which just doesn't happen enough in boxing. I like the style matchup, an aggressive stalker against more of a boxer. The winner could end up challenging the undisputed champion Canelo Alvarez, which makes it, as important as it gets. And then there's the tension between them, which always, injects extra energy into a promotion. Just everything about this fight is compelling. It just doesn't get much bigger than this.
Who do you think has the momentum heading into this fight?
I think you have to say that Benavidez has more momentum because he's unbeaten and he's knocked out his last 6 opponents. I mean, he's just destroying one guy after another. Plant has as much momentum as you could have after losing your penultimate fight, which was against Canelo Alvarez. He bounced back by, again, serving up the 2022 knockout of the year, the one-punch stoppage of Anthony Durrell. So he comes into the fight with momentum too. That knockout was huge in terms of this fight because it just lifted the fight to a different level.
Yeah, I don't know who has more momentum heading into this fight. I mean, coming off a knockout like that, I think Plant is pretty confident. I mean, he's been cool and calm throughout the buildup to this promotion. Benavidez far more aggressive. What does that tell us about their mindset heading into this fight?
Yeah, this is just my take. I don't know if it says much, to be honest. I think their demeanors have reflected their personalities. Plant has shown brashness at times, but he seems to be a soft-spoken guy by nature. He's not much of a talker. Benavidez is more of a fiery guy, a guy who's going to say exactly what he thinks at all times. That's who he is. I'll add this. I don't think Benavidez's brashness is somehow a sign of weakness, like some people seem to be saying or implying. I don't think it is. The dude is as confident as any fighter I've encountered. Both guys are confident.
Yeah, for sure. We know the Benavidez's WBC interim title is on the line, but what truly is at stake here?
Everything. Both guys are a victory, maybe 2 away from fighting for the super middleweight championship, presumably against Alvarez. That's what's there for the winner, the opportunity to be the man at super middleweight. That's just huge. The loser won't be finished in any sense of the word, but it'll be a significant step backward. It's tough to get the biggest fights. Sometimes you just never bounce all the way back from losses at this level of the sport. So it's just absolutely huge for each guy. You can't lose.
What does a win mean for Benavidez?
Again, a victory keeps him on track for what he wants. A shot at Canelo Alvarez and preeminence at 168 pounds before he moves up to 175. I don't think it's going to be long before he does move up, but I think he really wants to be called undisputed at 168. He certainly wants a shot at Canelo Alvarez, which would be, let's say he gets past Plant. Let's say he gets a shot at Canelo Alvarez and beats Canelo Alvarez. I mean, he's a superstar. So I think he wants to do this at 168, and he can't get this done unless he wins this fight.
And what about for Plant? What does a win mean for him?
I think a win for Plant would just be enormous. 2 fights ago, he was knocked out by Alvarez. If he beats Benavidez, he's on a higher plane than he's ever been. That would be just remarkable given what, took place against Alvarez. He gave a good performance against Alvarez, a better Alvarez than we've seen in the last couple of fights from him. So I take nothing away from him based on that performance. But a loss is a loss. But I just love the way he's bounced back. And if he could beat Benavidez, that's just enormous.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, a win for either guy is going to be huge and has a lot of implications for the sport going forward. Let's get into the fighter breakdown. This is something that we do on the PBC podcast for all our big fights. We have 9 categories where we rate each fighter on a 1 to 5 scale. And at the end, we tally up the amounts and see who comes out on top. We'll start with amateur foundation. Mike, how do you score them?
So this category was a little bit tricky because of the way each guy's career started. So if I were to answer that question in a literal sense, there would be a wide gap because Benavidez barely had an amateur career. My scores are Benavidez 3, Plant 4, based on that. So Benavidez turned pro at 16, meaning he learned the ropes in the paid ranks, not in the amateur ranks. That could be a good education too. And I think it was, obviously it was in Benavidez' case. Plant was an elite amateur. He was an alternate on the 2012 U.S. Olympic team. So he had a strong fundamental foundation when he turned pro at 21 years old. So, in the literal sense, you have to give Plant an edge in this category.
Yeah, I have Plant at 5 and Benavidez at 4. Plant, Golden Gloves champ at light heavyweight, 97-20 as an amateur. You mentioned him being an Olympic alternate. Benavidez had very few amateur fights, 15, but he did spend a lot of time sparring with champions and contenders and built up his experience that way. But I think you have to give the edge to Plant here. What about skill set?
So in skill set, I gave Plant a 5 and Benavidez a 4. I think they're essentially equal in terms of their skills, to be honest. Plant is more of a classic boxer, a guy who's quick, athletic, and does everything the right way. He's the graceful one, if you will. Meanwhile, Benavidez has to know what he's doing to dominate opponents as he has. I learned last week that he's the most accurate puncher in boxing. According to CompuBox, he had said he was the most accurate super middleweight. Turns out he's the most accurate guy in the entire sport. I think that says a lot about what he can do in the ring. He's obviously the powerful one, but he's also a good boxer.
Yeah, I gave both of them a 5 here because I just think that they both have elite skill sets. It's just two different styles of fighters. What about speed and athleticism?
So I gave Plant an edge here too, 5-4. Again, Plant is sort of the classic, quick, athletic guy. He'd probably be a good basketball player if he went that direction. Again, though, I think Benavidez has quick hands, maybe as quick as Plant when it comes down to it. And he's athletic and clever enough to cut off the ring against pretty much everyone he's fought. That's what he's done. So, again, I think it's really close, but I think Plant's probably a better natural athlete.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I think I had Plant with 5, Benavidez with 4. Benavidez is athletic. He's got great fast hands, quick hands, and I just think Plant has better feet, better movement, is a little more athletic that way, so I give him the edge here. What about punching power?
So maybe this will sound strange after Plant's last fight, but I have Benavidez 5, Plant 3, and I'll explain. Benavidez isn't a one-punch knockout artist, although he has ended fights that way. He just has heavy hands that wears opponents, that breaks his opponents down, and ultimately result in stoppages. 23 and 26 fights says a lot. Plant just showed against Durrell that he does have power too, but that's not what he's known for. I'm comfortable with a 3 for Plant because that's above average, and I think that's where Plant's power is. I think it's just above average.
Interesting. I think he has more power than he's shown. I think we saw that in the Durrell fight. Caleb was not, I don't think he sat on his punches too often prior to that fight. In this category, I have Benavidez at 5, Plant at 4. I think Benavidez clearly is the harder hitter, but I think, Plant has decent pop and he can hurt you if you allow him to sit down on his shots. What about physical strength?
So physical strength, I give Benavidez a 5-4 edge. This is one of Benavidez' great strengths, in my opinion. He just seems to be bigger and stronger than everybody he faces, which is obviously a significant advantage. That's why I think he should probably stay at 168 for as long as he can. You just don't know for sure whether he'll carry that strength up to 175, although I think he will. Plant is almost as big as Benavidez in terms of height and obviously weight. He's probably stronger than people realize. I just don't think anyone at 168 is as strong as Benavidez, including Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah, I have Benavidez at 5 and Plant at 4. I think that Plant's strength is underrated. He's a big, sturdy guy. He competed at light heavyweight, in the amateurs. So, and been at 168 for a long time. Just a guy who stays in shape year round. But Benavidez is one of the most physically imposing fighters in the sport, particularly in that weight class. And I think you got to give him the edge there. What about versatility?
This was another tricky category for me because both guys have had so much success. They haven't really had to deviate from their style. Maybe Plant a little bit against Canelo, and that just didn't work out. But at any rate, I gave each guy a 4 just to play it safe. Again, we haven't really seen these guys fight out of character because they haven't had to. Benavidez stalks and he pounds his opponents. Plant boxes more. That said, I see them both as good all-around fighters and probably still getting better, by the way. Meaning that they can adjust to whatever their opponents throw at them. It's just they just haven't had to in the past.
Yeah, I think we've seen Plant bite down when he won the title against Jose Valenzuela and, dig in close quarters. He also did some of that against Canelo Alvarez, although, he got in trouble with that later on. And I've seen Benavidez box, when he fought Ronald Gavril and had to use his jab. So, both guys, I think, have shown the ability to be versatile. So I do, however, think that Plant is a little more versatile. I think we've seen more dimensions from him. So I give him a 5, and I give Benavidez a 4. What about durability?
Benavidez 5, Plant 4. This goes back to the size and strength thing, at least to a good extent. Benavidez is a rugged guy with a good chin. Has he ever been hurt? I rewatched just yesterday. I rewatched his knock down against Ronald Gavril. That was a flash knockdown. He wasn't hurt. He got right back up. Plant also is a tough guy, but we saw him get broken down and knocked out by Canelo Alvarez. I think you have to give Benavidez an edge in this department. Again, 5'4". I don't think Plant's a slouch. I think he is a tough guy, just not as tough as Benavidez.
Yeah, I think you have to give the edge to Benavidez here too. I've got him 5'4", and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we just haven't seen him seriously hurt in a fight before, and he shows good conditioning, is able to go 11, 12 rounds while throwing tons of punches. So still a lot of question marks about how he'll react in that situation. But for now, I give him the edge, 5-4 over Plant in durability. What about experience?
I thought about this for a while. I decided to give them both 4. I'll explain. Neither guy, obviously these guys have had big fights. They fought on big stages, but neither of them has a ton of experience in really big fights, at least not compared to many of the top veterans. Benavidez is a 2-time champ, but this is arguably his biggest fight. Plant had that big fight with Alvarez, but nothing else that, approached that. What does approach a fight with Canelo Alvarez? Maybe their fights against Anthony Durrell were their next biggest fights, which were big fights, but not like this one.
Yeah, certainly this will be the second biggest fight of Plant's career, and the biggest for David. I give Plant the edge here. I think he's had more big fight experience. I saw the crowd when he fought in Nashville, and it was a packed house in there. So, and obviously another packed house when he fought Canelo Alvarez. Again, Durrell in his last fight. So he's been at this stage. I've been at a bigger stage than Benavidez, who's also, fought on pay-per-view undercards. He fought Durrell on the Spence Mikey Garcia undercard, and there were close to 50,000 people in there. So both guys have good experience, but I give Plant the edge. Having to go through a promotion and a fight with Canelo Alvarez ought to teach you a lot. What about freshness? Who is the fresher fighter?
I gave both guys a 5. Both of these guys are well preserved. From my perspective, Benavidez has fought, 2+ rounds in the last year and a half. That's probably too fresh. He's been in a number of long fights, but he's always the one beating up the other guy. Plant is fought only 8+ rounds in the past year and a half. And with his style, he just never takes too many shots. Putting the the last few rounds of the Canelo Alvarez fight aside for a second. And that's pretty much it. So I think both guys are young for their age.
Yeah, I think so too. I gave both guys a 5 as well. I think they're both in their prime, and they are ready to go. Let's tally it up and tell me what you got.
Yeah, so I surprised myself a little bit with my own final tally, which is 39 for Benavidez and 38 for Plant. Obviously, it doesn't get much closer than that.
Yeah, I've got it pretty close too. 41-41, as close as it gets. Dead even, which speaks to the 50-50 nature of this matchup, and what a great fight we have on Saturday night. What's your prediction?
I think it's going to look similar to the Alvarez-Plant fight. Plant is going to give Benavidez some problems in the first half of the fight, sticking, moving, standing his ground at times, moving again, holding, whatever it takes to score points and not get caught by Benavidez' big shots. The problem for him is that Benavidez is just going to keep coming and coming and coming. He's going to keep throwing punches and bunches, more so even than Canelo Alvarez, although he's not a volume puncher anyway. And as I said, Benavidez is the most accurate puncher in the game, certainly one of the most accurate. A lot of his shots are going to land, and they're going to wear Plant down. I envision Benavidez starting to hurt Plant in the later rounds and finishing him off before the final bell. I'm going to say Benavidez KO 10.
I think that's probably the smart choice and what a lot of people are picking. But I like Caleb Plant by close decision here. I think he's going to use that big ring, it's a 22-foot ring, to confuse Benavidez early, get him off stride and bank some rounds, and also frustrate Benavidez, which could open him up, for some counters. I think it's generally accepted that Plant is the best boxer Benavidez has ever faced, but what's being overlooked is that Plant is also the strongest person Benavidez has ever faced. And he does have some good pop. And look, I think he knows how to fight on the inside. He can hold his own there. I definitely don't think he wants to do that too much with David, but I'm sure he'll feel comfortable doing that. Leighton probably has prepared himself for doing that. I think he'll hold on to win a close decision.
I love that. The one thing that gives me pause about Benavidez, first of all, I have full disclosure, I'm a big fan of Benavidez. I kind of just fall in love with guys who I really like to watch fight. I just love watching Benavidez fight. But I gave you my honest assessment. The only thing that would make me pause is I could be getting carried away based on his resume. Again, who is his toughest opponent up until now? This is a step up. So we really haven't seen him against I really have a lot of respect for Anthony Durrell, to be honest, but we really haven't seen him against the top guys. So I have to say I don't know for sure, but I just love what I see from Benavidez based on who he has fought. So I feel comfortable with my choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this could go either way. I mean, I could see it going either way. I just got a funny feeling about it, and we'll see what happens, but we'll have plenty to go over next episode. Let's move on to the undercard and the co-feature. A great 154-pound matchup between two rising guys in the division, Jesus Ramos against Joey Spencer. What makes this fight so great?
For me, it's the fact it's a matchup of two rising, unbeaten young stars. One of them is going to take a big step forward. The other is going to take a big step backward, a devastating step backward. And that's always exciting. Plus they're both offensive-minded, which should make for an entertaining fight, which again is always important to me. So looking forward to that one. Yeah,
for sure. Jesus Ramos, I mean, big things have been expected of this guy over the past couple years. He just has the look of a future world champion. Assess him for us.
I think Ramos might be known primarily as a puncher, but he's a good boxer. He's a good all-around fighter. And I've always been impressed by his poise, given his age. He's still only 22 years old. He's still a kid. He just has all the ingredients to have a great success in boxing. So, yeah, he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on.
What about Joey Spencer? What can you tell us about him?
Spencer is a really good cerebral boxer from my perspective, and he seems to be a real student of the game, which might be why he gets noticeably better and better every time he fights. Every time he gets in the ring, I think, wow, this guy looks better than he did the last time. He's also a rugged, durable guy, which is important for long-term success. And don't sleep on his power. He also has heavy hands. I really like this kid. He has a high ceiling also. So anyway, this is why this fight is so good. These are both really, really good prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that they're facing each other just makes it that much better. Who is taking the bigger risk here?
Maybe Ramos. I think he's a little bit more established, so maybe he has a little bit more to lose against a legitimate threat like Spencer. Of course, the loss would be a big setback for Spencer too, but he can say, hey, I stepped up and it didn't work out. It's a learning experience. Bottom line, though, again, this is a big risk for both guys, which is why it's exciting.
And who are you picking?
You know what? This was one of the toughest picks, in recent podcasts for me. I just was going back and forth for a long time. Because I like both guys so much, but I'm just going to go with my gut. I think Spencer boxes a little bit better than Ramos. Maybe has a higher ring IQ, and he might have a higher trajectory right now. He has a little bit more momentum. He's just looked really good. I'm going to predict that Spencer outboxes Ramos and wins a close decision.
I like that pick. I mean, because I can totally see it happening. I really like the way Spencer looked against was it Kevin Salgado in his last fight, where
right.
where he outboxed him over 10 rounds. And that may be the best win on either guy's resume. That's it. I'm going with Jesus Ramos here. I think that he's going to, pull off a decision, perhaps even a late round stoppage, use his jab to keep Spencer at bay, and then, work him on the inside, try and wear him down and get him out of there late. Let's move on to the next fight, which is just as tough, in my opinion. Two lightweights, Chris Colbert against Jose Valenzuela. Mike, why or what makes this fight so compelling?
Yeah, it always comes down to storylines. The fact that both guys are, desperately fighting for their professional lives. Colbert was a hot contender when he was stunned by Hector Luis Garcia in February of last year, which completely changed the way he's perceived. Valenzuela was just, in my opinion, was overwhelmed by Edwin De Los Santos, lasting only 2+ rounds in that fight. So the loser might never recover, after this fight. So, that's just dramatic as hell.
Yeah, that's serious high stakes right there. What are your thoughts on Colbert following his loss to Hector Luis Garcia?
I think Colbert still has a ton of ability. He's super quick, super athletic, and he's got a really good skill set. He said this is typical. He said he wasn't himself that night against Hector Luis Garcia. I'll take his word for it, although I have to reserve judgment until we see how he looks, against Valenzuela and going forward. But my gut tells me he could still win a title. But I'm just, after what I saw, obviously, I'm just not 100% convinced.
Yeah, I mean, he was thoroughly beaten over the course of 12 rounds. Valenzuela's fight did not go the distance against De Los Santos. He was stopped in 3 rounds. What's your take on him following that defeat?
That was a bad loss. He didn't even look like, I'm just going to be brutally honest, he didn't even look like he belonged in the ring with De Los Santos that night, which is an obvious red flag. He obviously has ability. He was coming off nice knockouts of Austin Delay, and Francisco Vargas before he fought De Los Santos. People were high on him. I guess he just needs to prove that the De Los Santos fight was an aberration, which is possible. Once again, though, I won't be convinced until I see it. So I sort of have the same perspective on both guys.
Is one type of loss easier to recover from? I mean, Colbert, losing a wide decision, Valenzuela getting stopped.
Well, if we're comparing the Colbert and Valenzuela losses, they were both really bad, but I think Valenzuela's was worse. Garcia took charge, of the fight against Colbert, won convincingly, but he didn't make Colbert look like an amateur or anything like that. Valenzuela kind of got overwhelmed. That's just a horrible look. He has a lot to prove in this fight.
Yeah, I think so. That loss was such a huge surprise. Who are you picking?
This was the easiest prediction for me. I think Colbert just outclasses Valenzuela and wins a wide decision.
Wow, interesting. I like Colbert, but I like it by close decision. I think it's going to take him a while to sort of get going and let his hands go. Let's move on to the televised opener. Welterweight action, unbeaten Cody Crowley against veteran Abel Ramos. Mike, give us your thoughts on Crowley.
I like Crowley. He's just a good all-around fighter, works his ass off, comes to fight every time. I just really have a lot of respect for him, and I hope he gets his big opportunity at some point soon.
What about Ramos? Where is he at this stage in his career?
I see him as a tough veteran guy who's going to be dangerous as long as he fights. That's sort of the way I perceive him. He's a guy that if you overlook him, I think you're going to have problems. And I think he still has something. So this is another fun matchup. I like the storylines. Crowley's kind of this rising contender, rising young contender. Ramos is more of the veteran guy who's been around, still dangerous. So that's a good matchup.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think is at stake for the winner?
Well, again, Crowley's been, trying to get, stay and trying to get in position to get a title shot. And again, once you get up to this level, you can afford a loss. For example, we were talking about the Spencer Jesus Ramos fight. Spencer can afford to lose that fight. Ramos can afford to lose that fight because they're so young. They could rebuild, right? And your title shot will come a little bit later. But once you get up to the level where you're a top, I'm not sure exactly where Crowley's ranked, to be honest, or Abel Ramos. But once you get up to that level, I thought of this analogy. You're like walking on a rickety bridge. It's really dangerous once you get up to that level. You take a wrong step and you just go crashing down. So the last thing that Crawley wants is to lose this fight, because then it's a giant step backward and you have to rebuild again, and it's difficult to rebuild. So so the winners, you want a title shot, and the winner takes a big step in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Who are you picking?
I'm going with Crawley. I don't necessarily think that he dominates this fight, but I think he's good. He doesn't do anything fantastically well, but he's a good boxer. He's got solid power, tough guy, always comes ready to fight. I think he's just going to outwork his opponent. I think he's going to win a clear decision.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Crawley by clear decision here, too. I think he's going to outwork his opponent as well and wear him down over the course of 12 rounds. It's time to bring in our next guest, the undefeated two-time WBC super middleweight champion. He puts his WBC interim strap on the line when he faces Caleb Plant this Saturday, March 25th, in a Showtime pay-per-view from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, David Benavidez. David, we saw your recent workout, and you look like you're in phenomenal shape. How do you feel?
I feel amazing, man. Like I said, this is the biggest fight of my career to this date, and I'm very excited. I prepared very well. I know Caleb Plant is a tough opponent. I know he's been working hard as well. So, it's only right that this is the best training camp of my life, because, the stakes can't be higher. And I definitely want to impress a lot of people. Definitely want to prove a lot of people wrong and shut their mouths up. And, like I said, we're 100% ready to go.
Now, you've had a long camp for this one, because I think you started training fairly early from what I recall. And you still have a couple more weeks left. Are you concerned at all about overtraining or peaking too early?
No, overtraining is never in my mind, or never worry for me, because once we knew that we were gonna fight Caleb Plant, that it was gonna be on March 25th, we took like 2 weeks off. So as long as you give the body rest, the body was already in condition, so we gave it a little bit more rest, and then we just jumped right back into camp. But everything has been perfect, man. Like I said, we've done a lot of rounds of sparring. Everything is on point. So I'm just happy with the way everything turned out. And like I said, I'm just ready to show up for the fans on March 25th.
You brought up sparring. How do you prepare for someone like Plant? Do you need partners to emulate his style, or is it something else?
Yeah, we had like 4 or 5 different sparring partners. We definitely have fighters that, move around a lot, fighters that throw a lot. But we also got hard hitters too, because we never know what, just because Caleb Plant is a person that, moves around a lot in the ring, we might not know what his game plan is. Maybe his game plan is staying in there and trading with me, because now he thinks he has supreme power. So we don't know, so we got styles of boxers and styles of brawlers too. We mixed it up really good. And like I said, we had a lot of rounds in this training camp. So whatever Caleb Plant may bring on March 25th, we're extremely ready for.
You've had some strong words for him throughout the promotion. Is it just because you're trying to goad him into standing and fighting with you? Is it because you want to market the fight, or is there really genuine bad blood, toward Caleb?
I would say it's all 3 of those. I really don't like Caleb Plant. He's trying to get in my head. I'm trying to get in his head too, and also for promotion. This is the most vocal I've ever been in the fight, but I think the thing about this is that it's genuine dislike between me and him. So I don't got to act or nothing. I just don't like him at all. And I feel like, this is just a part of the show, especially pay-per-view. I think a lot of people need to stop criticizing, but they need to just sit back and enjoy the show. Like I said, we're entertainers at the end of the day, and who doesn't like a good grudge match? You know what I mean? So when the beef is real, the hate is genuine for each other, it just makes that fight even more better.
Yeah. I was going to say, do you think the animosity is something that makes you dig even deeper to be the best person you could be, or do you think it could hurt you in the ring?
No, so we definitely have to leave all emotions out when we step in the ring, but anger is a good motivator for when you're training. Like I said, it's very good, especially when you want to go more rounds, you want to get more work in, you want to put more road work in. It's definitely a great motivator for me. It's definitely been something I've used, to motivate me in my life. Like I said, when you're a little kid, you're a fat little kid, you're just mad all the time, and then you train extremely hard because of that. So I mean, I know how to do this. You know, I've been professional for 10 years. So I mean, this is we know exactly how to motivate myself and to get to that point. And like I said, the camp was amazing. It's probably one of the best camps I've ever had. And you know, I'm just ready to go to work.
Assess Caleb. What do you see as a fighter when you assess him?
I mean, he's a good fighter. He moves around a lot. He's more of a speed puncher. He's more of a fighter that has more speed. He has good power too, but he's more of a speed puncher. So I mean, when you fight somebody with Caleb Plant, you would definitely have to set traps up for him, and then you don't always want to rush into anything. You know, you always have to watch and see what he does. Everybody has tendencies, and everybody kind of gives up what they're gonna do. You just have to watch. You know, a lot of people say that, you know, I'm a brawler. I just come forward and, you know, I just walk people down. That's true, but I also know how to fight going backwards too. The only reason why I haven't is because nobody's really pushed me to do that. You know, most of my fights, I have my way in every single fight. After the second round, you know, I just basically go to work. But with Caleb Plant, I know I'm going to have to put a little bit more work in. I know how to. This is going to be a little bit more of a mental fight. You know, we're going to have to, you know, establish distance. You know, establish the jab, establish body shots, and then when I got him in the corner, that's when I go to work. But you know, we definitely have to set stuff up. You know, he's not going to stay in there and bang like how he tries to make it seem like he is. But, you know, once he feels that power, he's just going to know that this is a different type of level. Like I said, I had 26 fights, 23 knockouts. I've hurt every man I've been in the ring with. And now that I'm in the best physical and mental shape of my life, you know, I feel the best I've ever felt. So I'm going to feel even stronger. So, you know, I can't wait for you guys to see.
What do you think is your biggest advantage over him?
My biggest advantage is my height, my speed, my power. You know, that's the thing of what people don't understand. You know, Anthony Durrell kind of made Caleb Plant look small, and I make Anthony Durrell look very small. So a lot of people aren't taking account. I mean, they're not trying to look into this. They're not, you know, like my strengths, like I'm saying, my height, my speed, you know, I feel like I have more strengths than Caleb Plant. The only thing that Caleb Plant has that's a little bit better than me is that he moves around a little bit. He moves around a little bit more. But as a fighter that knows what he's doing, you know, come on, the records speak for itself. 23 knockouts out of 26 fights. He has what does he have? Like a 50% KO ratio. He has 13 knockouts in 23 fights, something like that. So as for the person that knows what he's doing and knows how to get stoppages, that's definitely me. You know what I mean? So we're putting a good game plan together, and like I said, the best is gonna come out of me March 25th.
So his knockout of Anthony Durrell, that didn't change like your opinion or anything?
No, it definitely didn't change anything. You know, I know he's a good fighter, and especially when you get caught with big shots like that, that stuff tends to happen. And Anthony Durrell's, you know, let's be honest, he was way over the hill. You know what I mean? He had got a draw with Kyron Davis. You know, I stopped him when I was 22 years old. So, I mean, Caleb Plant did what he was supposed to do. I mean, I expected it to go that way, you know? So, I mean, that his knockout doesn't change my mind about anything. If it's not like I'm going to go in there and try to just go in there and take shots. You know what I mean? That's never what I've done. I've always had tremendous respect for everybody I fight, everybody I go in the ring with, because I know with the 10-ounce gloves, you know, that it's different. So we're going to be sharp. You know, the defense is good. And like I said, you guys are going to see the Mexican Monster March 25th.
You were quoted as saying you're the most accurate puncher in the division. We actually looked it up on CompuBox, and you're the most accurate puncher in boxing. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, because like I said, I know what I'm doing. You know, just because you walk somebody down, you know, there's a science behind this. You know, you got to pick the right shots, and I obviously picked the right shots. How is it that I'm throwing so much of these shots and I'm extremely accurate? That's a lot of the things that people don't see, or a lot of things that people don't want to give me credit for some reason. You know, if Caleb Plant's IQ was so high, like he says he is and he claims he is, why isn't he right there, right behind me in that list? You know what I mean? So, I mean, like I said, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly how to hurt people. I've been hurting people since I was 13 years old, and, you know, nothing's changed. If anything, I'm even more dangerous now. You know, like I said, I'm there mentally and physically. I'm the best I've ever been. I just turned 26 years old. I feel like I'm coming into my prime. You know, it's barely starting to happen. So I'm just very excited.
You also got Jose Valenzuela with you in camp. He's coming off that crazy shootout with Edwin De Los Santos. Can you tell us what his rebuild has been like and how he's been looking in camp?
So yeah, he's been working extremely hard. You know, obviously it's a tough loss that he took, but he knows why he lost that fight. And I told him, you know, he has to stay focused. He has to stay working hard because, you know, you could get fame real quick, or you could, you know, rise up to the ranks, but it could all be taken away from you if you don't prepare accordingly. Yeah. So he knows that. You know, I feel like he knows that this fight is extremely important for him in his career. So he's been working his ass off, and you know, we've been working a lot. You know, this camp, you know, I've been trying to give him a lot of tips and pointers. So, you know, he's looking really good too, and I'm very excited to see that fight. This whole card is on fire too. You got Abel Ramos, Jesus Ramos. It's just a really good card. Not only just because I'm the main event, but the whole card is on fire. So I'm excited to see the fights, just like how you guys are too.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, your brother Jose Jr. has been in camp with you too. What has it been like working with him in preparation for this fight?
Yeah, it's you know, it's every time I work with my brother, you know, it's like it just reminds me like when we were little kids. You know, my brother always brings the best out of me. You know, he's always been a role model to me. He's always been a big inspiration to me. And, you know, like I said, the whole team Benavidez, you know, we're all looking for the same goal in our lives. We're all trying to be world champions. You know, my brother, Jose Benavidez, Raul Valenzuela, Diego Pacheco, Daniel Blancas, you know, we're all doing good, man. We're all coming in. We're all training extremely hard. We all motivate each other, and that's how it's supposed to be, you know, and we're all extremely ready for whatever comes our way.
I was talking to your father. He mentioned he's been studying Caleb for like years. Obviously, this is his second fight with Stephen Breadman Edwards. Have you seen a change in him at all working with Breadman?
To be honest, the only really thing the difference I see is that pawing jab. When he like goes like that, he's always kind of been the same fighter. He moves around a lot. But I mean, Breadman is a good trainer. He's a very good trainer. So I take nothing away from him. I know they're going to be extremely prepared, but at the end of the day, Breadman can't fight that fight for him. You know, it has to come through Caleb. Caleb is the one in the ring with me. So once Caleb, I don't know if you've seen, but look at the guys that Caleb is sparring. He's sparring little guys. You know, I think he was working with Bouhairie Jones at 154. Then he was working with the guy at 160. And I looked up the guys' records, and the guys, the ones that are at 160, they don't have no knockouts. You know what I mean? So what's going to happen when he gets in there and he feels the real power, the power that he hasn't felt his whole camp? You know, because with me, I've worked with guys that are really fast in my training camp. So, and guys that are hit really hard in my training camp too. So I'm ready for anything. But I don't think he really prepared himself like I prepared myself. So I'm ready to go to war. Like I said, this is the type of fights I've been wanting, and I've been calling for. And I know it's going to be a hard fight, but that's what I want. I don't shy away from any hard fights. I love competition, and that's just the fighting spirit in me. And like I said, you guys are going to be in for a treat March 25th because this fight is going to be an amazing fight. So
last question. I mean, I've heard you talk about the stoppage. I've seen you talk about it in several different interviews. How do you see the fight playing out? What can we expect on March 25th?
I definitely see him getting hurt, you know, by, you know, me hurting him with some combinations, and then also the body work. You know, we've been working so much body for this training camp, and that looks like that's Caleb Plant's Achilles heel, the body shots. You know, he was doing good with Canelo, but once Canelo started digging into that body, you guys seen what happened already. And then there's always a pattern that emerges with Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant, he's a great first half fighter, but he tends to fade off in that second half. Me, I get strong in the second half. And every time he goes in there with the power punch, he ends up getting hurt. He beat Uzcategui, but look at the second half of the Uzcategui fight. He gets in there with Canelo. Canelo, you know, he does good the first half, but then Canelo starts walking him down and starts wearing him down. So, I mean, and then me, you get a person like me, like you said, the most accurate puncher in boxing, I guess you guys are saying. I thought I was only a super middleweight, but now it gives me even more confidence hearing that. And I throw punches and bunches, and I do not get tired. So once you get a guy that is extremely big, longer arms than Caleb Plant, more power, probably the same amount of speed, you know, he's in for a hell of a night. And I said, I'm gonna put a beating on him, and I'm gonna enjoy every single minute of that beating.
David, thank you so much. Always good to catch up with you. We wish you nothing but the best on March 25th, and we'll see you then.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Take care, man.
The hostility between these two guys is real.
March 25th.
My objective is putting a beating on Caleb Plant.
Knockout artist and two-time title holder David Benavidez takes on the smooth technician and former champ Caleb Plant.
I need to teach him a life lesson.
And no one's backing down.
I'm gonna beat the living out of you. You're not gonna do nothing.
David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant, Saturday, March 25th, live on pay-per-view.
It's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe. And the question this week involves Saturday's big pay-per-view headliner between David Benavidez and Caleb Plant. And that question is, who has more to lose on Saturday night, Mike?
Okay, so I want to reiterate for one final time, to be clear, any loss at this level of boxing is bad. These guys are both former title holders. They want to get there again and go beyond that. They'd love to call themselves undisputed, which is still a rarity in boxing. And that doesn't happen anytime soon, with a loss. And of course, a bad loss, one-sided decision, a knockout, is worse than a close decision, no matter who we're talking about. So yeah, it's bad for either guy. That said, I think a loss would probably be worse for Plant. Benavidez is already a two-time title holder, so that dream was already realized. He's younger than Plant. Maybe people forget he's only 26. The younger you are, the more time you have to rebuild. It would be his first loss, which is always tough, but it's also easy to give him a pass after one. It's easier to give him a pass after one setback. He could say, listen, anyone could have an off night. I'll be back. And he would get more opportunities. Plant also has been a title holder, so that's almost a push with Benavidez. However, he's 30 years old, 4 years older than Benavidez. And most important, it would be his second loss in as many, super fights, if you will, really big fights. He might, be seen as a fighter who can't quite beat the top, pound for pound guys. You do not want that reputation. Fans don't get quite as excited about those guys. And it's harder to get, the biggest fights when you get that reputation. It's just not a good place to be. Of course, again, how he loses, how the loser loses is important. In Plant's case, if he pushes Benavidez to his limits and comes up just short, that would mitigate some of the fallout. But I think still, it's best not to go there. His career really, Plant's career is really on the line Saturday. And finally, for the record, I don't know whether there's a rematch clause in the contract, and if there is, whether it works both ways. If the loser can get a second shot, at the guy who beat him, that obviously would be a second chance to get things right. So that's an important factor also.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you covered everything. And one of the major things that you pointed out is that a lot depends on what happens in the ring and how a person loses. Is it a close, valiant fight? Where they stop, so on and so on. I think both guys have a lot to lose. David Benavidez has built up a reputation as a unstoppable monster, the man Canelo fears. He's never lost, so I think a loss here is a setback. But like you, I think Caleb Plant has more to lose. He's already had the loss to Canelo, and as you pointed out, if he loses to Benavidez, that puts him a tier below the elite. He still is a top contender, but it's not like Benavidez, if he were to take a loss in his first big fight, given that he's the younger fighter and will probably get a chance to climb that hill again. So there's a lot on the line for Caleb Plant on Saturday night, and that's got to give him even more motivation, as if he needed it.
Yeah, that's extra motivation. That's part of it. There's so much on the line. Boxing is just different now. Back in the day, maybe I'm talking about the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe into the 70s. You could lose and then you fight 5 times in the next 6 months and people forget about the loss. These guys only fight a couple times a year. If you lose, it's really, and I keep saying it over and over again, but it's really these days more than ever. It's just really, really a big deal. Maybe that makes fights, and on some level, maybe that makes fights more exciting because what's at stake, and it just adds to the drama. It adds to the intensity. It does. Not maybe. It for sure adds to it. So in that sense, maybe it's kind of a good thing. So you just don't want to lose these days in boxing because it's such a big setback. It's not necessarily a death knell, but it's so big.
Yeah, it takes that much longer to climb back to the top. At this stage, you can do it, but I feel like it takes that much longer. But you're right. I mean, when you recognize what is at stake on Saturday night, you realize, what a great fight and what a great card, but what a great fight, Benavidez versus Plant is. It's got the bad blood, it's got the rivalry, it's high stakes, and it's two elite fighters. I mean, I think fight fans can't ask for anything more. Don't forget about that Saturday night on Showtime Pay-Per-View at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. And that is going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank David Benavidez. We want to thank Jose Valenzuela for joining us. And of course, we want to thank you guys for listening. Be sure to check us out for more boxing news, more interviews right here on the PBC Podcast.